Alright, I'm hooking the wires up to my single gang plug. White, which is neutral, always goes to your largest eye on your face. Notice this one's slightly smaller, this one's large. Have your ground lug here, which would attach to your socket here. This will be extended up, but I'll go ahead and do that now. You just bend it into place. Now I want to show you how you can take wire off. Now this one is not long enough to go around. I need more copper to bond here. So the way I do that, if I had a pair of nippers I'd show you that, but I don't have a pair of nippers handy. They make strippers that you just squeeze down on and then you pull off. But for those of us that are old school, I turn this around. The wire is now crimped. I just grab onto it. I didn't squeeze down very hard, just enough to crimp the insulation. And I have the wire I need. Quick and painless. Now if you notice my monkey face, right? So I want to go on to the top one. Now there's two ways we can go on to this. I can take this piece right here and I can curl it. Always curl to the right, because remember, righty-tighty, and we want this thing to pinch. I can do it that way. Just take this wire and physically bend it around and then set it into here and then pinch my two pieces together, which I've done that too. Another way, if for some reason you don't have a pair of needle nose, you can take this and put this in here like so, and then bend it. Put it into here, bend it again, then put it in and bend it again. You've got a pretty good little bend there. This is if you don't have pliers, right? Take a screwdriver, put it in here like so, bend and twist, and as you can see, I have it all wrapped around in there. If you had a pair of pliers, you would have done the same thing, except at this point, once you have it on here, you would take this, grab onto your two wires, and bend it like so. Now, when you tighten this, you have a real good bond between your wire and your connector. It is important to get a really good tight bond. A loose bond gives you a frictional fit. That friction, that space in there, I'm calling it friction, it's called a resistance, because it's not got a good bond. That resistance builds up heat and creates a fire. There are many, many house fires that start as a result of bad wiring. So get a good electrician or know what you're doing. Now let's go put this in the box. Now let's assume that we have the right tools for the right job, and we want to put a ground wire on here. Now the ground wire is not going to be insulated. Since they're going up, we have to be very careful that when we run this wire up, that we don't come in contact with anything. Now this neutral and this ground are going to be going to the same lug point. Doesn't matter, we don't want them to touch. Previously, I told you how to put this thing in and bend it. I'll show you the pliers now. I bend it a little more. Now I bring it around into a fish hook, as you can see. I take this, I bend it down. Okay, so I have a fish hook. I now take this. Remember, I want to go to the right. Going to have to bend it a little more. Have to take the screw up just a little bit. Take this, push it into place. If you're hearing voices in the background, it's the radio. I'm listening to a talk show, which so far they haven't said anything of value. They never do, but it's the only station I can get out here. Gonna have to open that up just a little bit more. It's gonna be it. If I can't get it on there, I'll have to go to plan B and get a different piece of wire. Alright, we got this one in. Alright, this wire is too big for this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a different one and come back. Alright, I got a slightly thinner piece of copper wire to use for ground. I pull it tight. And now I tighten this real good. Let me explain something real quick. Normally, when you put in an electrical socket, and if you notice, I'm going to put this along the back of this right here, like so. Normally, when you put in a socket, the wire is coming from the source to here. In this case, I'm doing this backwards, and I'll be installing it from point of use here to the source. For that reason, when you put this into the box, you need to add some wire. So if you ever have to change this out, you can pull this out of the box and put a new one on and put it back into the box. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. So let's go install it in the box. Before I actually put this in the box, let me see if I can zoom in on this. You'll notice that right here is a strip gauge. See that? That tells you how long your wire needs to be if you're going to be going into these holes. Now these holes are really small. They're like about a 16 or 18 gauge, and I'm using number 12s. So I might decide to hook this up to an air compressor out here to fill tires. I don't want to be using really small wire like this. You see the difference right here, how big this is compared to that hole. The other thing is, if you insert these in the hole, you have to have kind of a special tool, special size that is, to press into these slots to get this thing to release out. I don't like that. I've never liked the push in. They give you a good connection. Taking them apart is a bear if you don't have that specific size non-electrically conducting screwdriver to push in there. That's why I go with the outside lugs. Now let's go install this. If you notice, my electrical box is very firm. It doesn't move, right? So we're ready to put this in. These will feed up through here and onto these lugs here. So we feed these into the conduit. I hope you can see that coming out. Like I said, we're going to be running behind in just a minute, but for now, getting the ground wire into this conduit is proving to be a little bit difficult. Not impossible. All right, here's my here's my ground wire coming up as we come up through here. Now, if you remember, I said that we have to have enough wire in here in order for us to install this and be able to get it out. So how much do we need? This is about right here. So now, with this done, we can hook these up inside here. The first thing I want to hook up is this ground wire. So I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to manipulate it into place, and I'm going to determine that I need to cut it right about there. So I reach out and I cut the little jewel, just like that. My screwdriver conveniently fell to the ground. And from a previous episode, you know that I have opened this one up, but I never put it back into place. So now, using the needle nose pliers, that's what happens when the camera falls over, because I knocked it with my elbow. I now pull this into place with the needle nose pliers, and I start to tighten up this ground lug. Remember, you want these things really tight. Now that that is in place, oops, wrong one. Now that that's in place, we're ready to push this into here. In this case, we're going to kind of fold the wire a little bit on both sides. Like so. Being careful not to tear the insulation. And now we just physically push. As I told you, this is number 12, and number 12 is really heavy. We now physically push this into place. Get my bottom screw started. Now, I've got to bend this ground wire to get it to start to allow me to push in, because it's working against me. Now we'll get the top one started. Well, it doesn't want to go. All right, there we go. Now, again, we can bend these wires some. If you're going to use the flat of the screwdriver, just kind of poke it so you don't tear the insulation. Occasionally it helps to just give it a shove to help bend those wires. when you do this, it's important to make sure that this thing is in the right position, equal sides left to right, because when you put your faceplate on, your plate will be kind of crooked or something otherwise, and this is an exterior weatherproof, so I want to make sure it's real nice and straight. The next step is to put the wires in the box. If you remember, we come over, we measure where we need to go, and then I cut the wire. So let's remeasure this, see where we need to go, and cut the wire. We cut it a little long, that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. I'd rather have it slightly long than too short. We come out, we strip our insulation off like we did before. Make sure that's in the box. Strip our insulation off. Get our screwdriver out here. Open up my lug. Baby's hot out here. Put my wire in. You may not be able to see it, but the copper wire is protruding from the back side of this grounding bus bar. This piece that I'm on right now is sometimes referred to as a bus, B-U-S, just like you send your kids to school in. Or if they're smart, they'll ride in the very back if there's good bumps, so that they can do a little low G travel. Now this last piece, which is my hot, it's going to come up and it's going to feed into this bottom lug right here. And as I said, I'm not real thrilled with crossing wires. I can come up like this. I can bend this. You got to get the screwdriver out of my hand. I can come up here like this, grab this, bend this over, and then feed it in. Now, the way these things work, you have a lug here, and when you open it opens up a gap in the back. And the gap in the back is where this wire slides into. So when I put this in place, it's going to be pretty close. Now, I want this in pretty good, and I am going to probably go in front of it, although that's not what I had originally intended. So I'm going to cut my piece right here. That's where you don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to tear my insulation off. The humidity out here is a little over 88%. So if I look like I'm sweating, I am. Crease the wire to make it easier to tear. And now latch onto the insulation if you can see that. And I tear it off. And while it's been tearing off easily before, it doesn't want to tear off easily now. And the sun's coming out, sweat's getting in my eyes. It's just difficult to see. Alright, got this into place, and now we're ready to put this in. Using the screwdriver, we loosen the lug. Getting so much sweat in my eyes I can't see. I take this, I put this into the lug. I'm not really sure that I have it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to put it into the lug like this, like so. Make sure it's nice and tight. Alright, that's now in. That would be on, that would be off. And now bend my wire away from that. Keep it out here like so, and now we're ready to go. As you can see from what I've got this one up here which is going to go to my shop. I have this one down here which comes down to this box that we just put in. And that is how you wire in a box. There are other ways to do it, and an electrician might disagree with me. If there are any electricians watching, they are more than free to give good advice. The electrical wiring sizes is based on NFPA. The ground wire, the grounding system is all still NFPA. The way this box is configured is NFPA. And if you have any questions about how something is to code, check with your building inspector, the guy that does like electrical checks, or if you're doing plumbing, you're going to have somebody that does plumbing and so forth, to make sure that you meet standard. Electricity will cause fires, and you do not want a fire. If there's a fire out here, they're going to pull your meter or cut it at the pole. That's a 1052 for some of the electrical dispatching companies. 1052, cut it at the pole. And you'll be without electricity until it has been corrected and the electrical inspector comes back out. So make sure you're right. With that said, Dysfunctional Vet closes out this segment of entertainment.